So we've done that guy. Now let's go in and start adding columns and column grids, because that's pretty important. Just like walls host doors, column grids can host columns. So to do that, let's just go down to our level 1 or ground floor plan. And to add a column grid is very similar to adding a level. And a lot of the tools you use within it operate exactly the same way. If you think of a level as like a grid in the vertical direction, like this, a grid is the same thing but in the flat direction, plan view. So if we go architecture in a plan view, you'll see grid. Notice that in a plan view, grid is available, but level is grayed out. If we go to an elevation view, they're both available. If you go to 3D view, neither is available. So if you're ever looking for a tool and it is not available, check your type of view, because a lot of different views will have different abilities as far as creating new elements. So in the floor plan, I can create this grid, and just like we did before, we can start off by going from here. So it's nice because it's going to kind of snap. So I'm going to click there and draw my line over. One, let's say like that, could be two, and let's say here, could put grid line 3. Now, if I want to go in this direction, we can do that too. I can click here, and it's going to name that number 4. Here's a really cool thing. Typically, grid lines, you have a numbered side, and then let's say like your rows and then your columns. So your rows could be numbered, and columns could be letters, or vice versa. So here, I'm going to just click that, and if you select that and put an A, and then just click out, or you can change it here. And now I'm just going to make another one of those over here. Notice it's not number 4 again, now it's B. And this one becomes C. So that is super cool, because now we have 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. And we didn't have to do anything extra, I just kind of did it for us. This next thing I'm going to show you works with sort of any kind of geometry. It can be doors, windows, columns. It's basically a trick to get equal spacing on repetitive kind of things. So right now we have, let's say I just kind of drew these in place. If you go to annotate and you grab, let's say an align dimension, and I go boom, boom, and then click here, boom, and then move this out. Notice how it's telling me this one's 16, this one's 20, and it's saying they are not equal. If I go here now and say boom, 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 we have 11 and 12'6" not equal. If I did want them equal, double click there or just single click on EQ, you'll see these change to EQ, EQ, and it's moved them so that they're centered. You can do this with, let's say we want to add more grid lines. So remember the trick, CS, create similar, we can click here, look at D, let's say we had another one out here, E, that dimension I don't need it, but now we could delete that if I wanted to. You can say unconstrained, because it was restricting these based off of being equal, and I'll show you what that means. I can do an align dimension here, 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 and if you click that, they're all equal. Now if I were to select this one and change here that proportion between these two, not 13.4 to be 13.6, notice all of these respace themselves to equal this one. So if I click that one, 13.6, 13.6, this dimension is pulling off of there. If you go to the grid line, it's 13.6. So that's something to understand, because sometimes people create those relationships and don't remember why they can't move a wall, or don't get why a wall is shifting all weird when they're trying to do something. So here we can look at that and see where that column lands and use that to adjust our design. So you could say maybe I would want to move that wall out now, or maybe I want to pull that back, vice versa. So super cool. Now that we have that, we can drop in a column. So columns exist here, so we kind of skipped over them, but we have column, and then by default you just have the W members, so I-beams as they call them. It says steel. If you want a different one, we can bring that in. You can do at grids, so it'll just, you can select all the grid lines and click at grids and it will just drop them all in. So by default, depth, you can do depth or height, unconnected. So height, we can say to level 2, depth, let's say to ground. Oops, where'd that go? So depth, let's do that one. And height, let's see if it'll let me do this. So if you zoom in, it will snap to the column line there, and if you hit spacebar, it will let you rotate them. And once you've clicked, it will drop them in place. And then here, you can click there, we can click here. I'm just gonna click at all the intersections. And you'll see they snap to them. So it's not that difficult to kind of go along and drop these guys in. So I've just done all of them now. I think I missed this grid line. And we have some columns, and so now we can go there, and let's tab over to our 3D view, and we got columns floating out in space, and columns in the walls, so we got columns all over the place. But one thing that's neat is, let's say I wanted to change these to like a wood type of column. So if you pick that, you'll see it's a W shape. If I had to type here, we could do that. We don't have it. So let's go to Insert, Load Family, just like we did before. We went to Windows. This time we're going to go to Structural Columns, Wood, Dimensional Lumber. And so this one we open, we get this menu. This is asking which of these, so we have this family is coming in, how many types do you want to load into your project? You can pick one, you can pick two, or you can just drag and grab all of them and bring them in. You have selected many family types to load. Loading types that are not going to be used take up additional memory and should be avoided. You want to continue. You could say yes, or we could say no, and then we got to redo all that stuff. So load family. So it's telling you that it's going to be slow. So structural columns, wood, dimensional, and then let's load, let's say 4x4s and 4x8s. I use control to grab both. And now it's been loaded into the project, so once you click that, you should see them here. So 4x8. And we can grab this, right click, say select all instances, either visible in view or an entire project, and then we can change those to wood, 4x8. If we wanted to make a custom type that was 8x8, like super fat dimensional lumber, we can do that by clicking this, edit type, very similar to what we did before, duplicate that. We would name this one 8x8. Make sure you're in 8x8, and then here you have dimension B and D. So this is the one we would want to match to the other side. So 7.25. Oops, I put a space. That's why it didn't work. 7.25. And okay. And you'll notice that one changed. And we can either match properties and grab that one and grab all the other ones, or we can select this one and manually change it, or we can tell it Let's go to a plan view so you can see these change in plan. We can grab that guy and say select all instances in the entire project and change the 4x8 to 8x8. So there you go. That's in there. We've got our columns, we've got our roof, and we've got this. These guys are floating out in space. So let's adjust our level 1 floor. So let's modify that boundary to go all the way out to here. So we can then say grab all these, move. I typed in move like you would in AutoCAD. You don't need to do that. You can do this, or you just type in MB. So 18 feet over, accept it. And then now when we go to our 3D view, you'll see I made the floor go way out there. We can move the windows out, we can move the walls with it. There's tons of stuff you can change here. Let's modify this. Here's a cool one. You can also edit the floor in the 3D view as long as you are used to. So here I'm going to try and grab that front face, but Revit doesn't know what I'm trying to grab. So I'm going to hit tab until I see it highlight. There it is. I'm going to click now and click there, and it will bring it out. So I drag that over, and then if I wanted to create a new wall or extend this one, I could. I think what I'm going to do is just add only a wall down here, leave that as kind of like a patio on top. That's kind of cool. So I would want to grab all these columns and make them not go to level 2 but go to level 1, so it pulls them down. And then here I need to draw like a wall or something to get that to go out. The other option would be to change the floor so that it goes out, and then we can add a railing or something like that. I actually want to get rid of that weird notch sticking out since it's going to be like that. So I can tab over to this, edit boundary, just pick that, delete it, delete this one, and then I'm going to, oops, I put thin lines on. I'm going to trim that one to this one. Next slide. Now when I look at my building, I've got this little balcony. And I think that's a good spot to kind of stop. Once we get going,